That's just a trash can.
It's just a trash can.
Well, this'll be fun. Wonder Woman 1984 is a conflicted hot mess of a film. Whether it is the character development, the various plots and subplots, or the themes of the narrative, Wonder Woman 1984 unravels at the seams. Even beyond some bad special effects, the over-reliance on 80s nostalgia, moments that defy the suspension of disbelief, and the really hokey opening action sequence, the movie's core thematic thesis, narrative structure, and characterizations of its heroes and villains often undermine and contradict each other. Whether it is Wonder Woman's minimal screen time, the controversial nature of Steve Trevor's return, Wonder Woman's arch nemesis Cheetah being relegated to a supporting villain role, and how Pedro Pascal's Trump stand-in MacLeod is portrayed with an air of sympathy, Wonder Woman 1984 continually shoots itself in the foot, often being a bad movie experience narratively and thematically speaking. It is a pretty bad, albeit not a terrible experience. But make no mistake, Wonder Woman 1984 is a complete shit show of half-baked, awkwardly executed ideas, probable studio interference, and baffling creative decisions. And all of these cinematic miscues are exemplified by the film's lackluster story. The plot follows Wonder Woman as she investigates a magical stone, no relation, that grants the wishes of those that hold it, while also deceptively slipping in a curse. The events of the movie escalate when the oil tycoon, con man, and TV personality MacLeod, an obvious representation of Donald Trump, possesses the stone and wields it to dangerous effect, causing Wonder Woman to spring into action before the whole world implodes in on itself faster than Donald Trump's 2020 presidential campaign, or an asshole with hemorrhoids. I don't speak from experience on that one. Wonder Woman 1984's best attribute is in how it sticks to its 80s-centric theme. Even more than the dated technology and the bizarre fashion trends, the movie focuses on consumerist, instantaneous excess, the never-ending desire of wanting more than what you already have, which really befits the movie's 80s setting. This is most abundantly clear in the film's villain, MacLeod, who overall is a very compelling main antagonist. As the aforementioned Donald Trump stand-in, MacLeod is the embodiment of greed, always desiring to accrue more wealth and power for himself, much to the detriment of everyone else. And when he utilizes the power of the wishing stone to grant the wishes and wants of numerous people on a national scale, Max's selfishness only becomes more dangerous. Admittedly, this is a really cool idea for a villain. While the narrative framing of this plot element has been criticized, because you know what happens when people make wishes that are based on necessity or understandable wants rather than selfishness, Donald Trump, MacLeod, is a sleazy con man and a cheat, and any wish granted by him will inherently have strings attached and negative consequences. And as a result, he is a very good villain that really plays into the film's theme of avarice and greed, which is just very 1980s. He's a pretty neat baddie, but with that being said, there is one major caveat. MacLeod is portrayed in a human and sympathetic manner. He is a family man who just wants his son to be proud of him, but this character intricacy is problematic. While MacLeod being a sympathetic antagonist is fine on its own, there are two big problems here. Firstly, cutthroat capitalism that profits from mass consumerism, the film's theme, is an entity that lacks humanity and common decency, and any empathetic portrayal dilutes this salient point. And secondly, MacLeod is a stand-in for Donald Trump, a man that isn't sympathetic at all unless racism or authoritarianism isn't a deal breaker for you, in which case you are garbage, and the very notion that Trump could ever love anyone more than himself is laughably false, even if they are his children. And Pedro Pascal's more empathetic portrayal just does not work in Wonder Woman 1984's favor here. And that really sucks to say, because I really like Pedro Pascal. He is one of my favorite supporting actors in the business. He's a charismatic presence and is immensely likable, but as stated before, he's supposed to represent Donald Trump, the epitome of grotesque avarice, greed, and just being a really shitty person. And MacLeod being likable really contradicts Wonder Woman 1984's themes regarding mindless consumerism and the fact that he is a parallel characterization of Donald Trump, the film really misfires here, and it is very unfortunate. Speaking of things that are unfortunate about Wonder Woman 1984, where is Wonder Woman? Despite being titled Wonder Woman 1984, Wonder Woman herself feels like a supporting character. If anything, MacLeod is the film's focal point. So much of Wonder Woman 1984's drama and action centers around him. And while sure, DC movies are known to give their villains a lot of screen time, that does not change the fact that Diana, a character who should be receiving top billing here, feels like a third wheel. Wonder Woman is basically a co-star in her own movie. Wonder Woman's bad character arc only makes matters worse. She comes across the wishing stone early on and wishes for Steve Trevor, Chris Pine, very likable, to return from the dead, which he does through some body swap shenanigans. This potentially could have gone well. Narratively and thematically, this body swapping angle could have been cool in theory and really played into the movie's theme of unrealistic desires. After all, Steve Trevor is Diana's love interest, and Chris Pine, even with a lackluster script, is still a hell of a lot of fun. But the movie does not emphasize this body possession plot point. Sure, Diana endures some trials and drawbacks in regards to Steve's return from the dead, but Wonder Woman 1984 takes the least interesting avenue possible here. Let's be clear here. Steve Trevor is inhabiting someone else's body, which should bring up some ethical and moral conundrums for these characters. Yet, the movie mostly ignores the fact that Steve is violating someone else's personhood, despite how it could have been a very thought-provoking dilemma for Diana in terms of how Steve Trevor's return from the grave is actively harming an innocent person. This really could have fit with Wonder Woman 1984's criticism of mindless consumerism. After all, there is no ethical body swapping under capitalism. But in Wonder Woman 1984, this potentially intriguing story point is lacking and unfulfilled, just like my sex life. And I'm trans. I'm very partial to body swaps, bodily autonomy, body possessions, bodies by drowning pool, and etc. But Wonder Woman 1984 really drops the ball here.
It's just a trash can.
Yes. It is. This untapped potential negatively affects other characters as well, particularly Kristen Wiig's performance as Minerva, also known as Cheetah, which is very disappointing seeing as Cheetah is a very dynamic adversary in the comic book source material. In the comics, Minerva is Wonder Woman's good friend and confidant that is jealous of Diana's strength and beauty, and she more or less makes a pact with a godlike entity to be a powerful super being in exchange for her moral and physical humanity, becoming Wonder Woman's arch nemesis. This is a really good hero and villain dynamic that is sadly bungled in this film. Cheetah's arc is not executed all that well because the movie tries to do too much heavy lifting with her character. Minerva is introduced and meets Diana early on in the film, meaning that the whole movie must quickly establish a new friendship between Diana and Minerva, as well as Minerva's subsequent corruption and transformation into Cheetah in a movie that is already overloaded with plots and subplots, much like how a Whopper is overloaded with mayonnaise. In Wonder Woman 1984, Minerva, or Cheetah rather, feels like a supporting villain rather than Wonder Woman's signature baddie in her rogues gallery. Instead of playing second fiddle, she deserved to have her own movie that allowed this villainess to shine. Cheetah needs way more screen time than just one film, and Wonder Woman 1984 makes this point abundantly clear. Furthermore, Wonder Woman's and Minerva's relationship needed more attention and build-up. In fact, their friendship should have been set up in a previous movie, because when it comes to Wonder Woman's and Cheetah's hero-villain dynamic, establishing a rapport is necessary in order for Cheetah's betrayal and moral corruption to really hit home. She needed to be part of two movies, allowing one movie to set up her character with the film following it to be a Wonder Woman vs. Cheetah adventure. But with Wonder Woman 1984, the movie simultaneously tries to do too much with Cheetah's character while having her be an afterthought when compared to MacLeod. It is the ultimate contradiction. And the word contradiction ultimately exemplifies Wonder Woman 1984's various problems. Wonder Woman 1984 is narratively and thematically conflicted. Whether it is Wonder Woman being a supporting character in her own movie, MacLeod being a sympathetic stand-in for a notably unsympathetic person, Steve Trevor inhabiting someone else's body without grappling with ethical consent violations, Wonder Woman's arch nemesis being relegated to a henchwoman, or how Wonder Woman heroically saves a bunch of kids in the Middle East, despite actress Gal Gadot's historical baggage there, Wonder Woman 1984 is a hot mess, and that is even before we get to some of the nuts and bolts issues. The film is awkwardly edited, contains hokey elements, often has bad special effects, and features a stiff performance from Gadot. And while these criticisms can be said about the first Wonder Woman as well, that movie was still a heartfelt romp that was easily able to overcome those issues. But the same cannot be said here. So Wonder Woman 1984. What a disappointing mess. And with that, I want to thank my patrons, especially my high tier ones in Slasher Avails, Mom, and David Devlin. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. I love y'all. And if you want to participate in my Patreon, the link is in the description. Thank you.